4 meses depois que apareceram os primeiros casos da gripe suína no México, o vírus se espalhou por quase todo o planeta. Mas as autoridades de saúde de vários países insistem que não há motivo para pânico. Será?
Esta é uma das perguntas do Sem Fronteiras desta semana, que também quer saber o que se espera quando o verão no hemisfério norte terminar e as aulas recomeçarem.
Aqui no Brasil também cresce o número de mortes pela gripe H1N1. Para diminuir a propagação do vírus, férias escolares foram prolongadas em áreas mais afetadas. Agora, autoridades de saúde torcem por um inverno mais brando e mais curto no sul e sudeste do país. No programa de hoje, nosso esforço é esclarecer o que vai acontecer daqui para frente com a nova gripe.
O Reino Unido é o país mais afetado pela gripe suína na Europa, tanto em números absolutos de casos comprovados, 100 mil, quanto em mortes, 26. Os hospitais cuidam de 850 pacientes, 63 deles sob tratamento intensivo. Ainda assim, as autoridades sanitárias se esforçam para que o público não perca o senso de perspectiva e resvale para um pânico desnecessário. A maior parte das pessoas com gripe suína não sofreu mais do que se tivessem acometidas de gripes comuns.
I'm sure that it is appearing to spread, but I'm not personally panicking.
How concerned are you about swine flu?
Well, personally, not too much, because I think I'm not in the most vulnerable age group, and we've had plenty of clear instructions from our government about how to ring our doctors if we feel ill or what to do, you know, so I think we feel reasonably confident, but perhaps people with young children might be more worried, obviously.
Quite concerned for the, quite concerned.
Are you worried about yourself? You worry about your child?
I'm more worried about the children.
Have you done anything about it?
No, not really. I was a bit worried about coming up here today on the tube, but, you know, can't live like your life like that, can you really?
Keep on going normal?
Keep going, yeah. Just keep going.
In this country we have seasonal flu every year. I work for the NHS, I see these flus come and go, and this is just another one.
Quanto ao número de mortes, as autoridades lembram que só envolvem pacientes com outros problemas mais sérios de saúde, o que também ocorre quando o ataque é de gripes tradicionais, responsáveis por 6 mil mortes por ano no Reino Unido. A diferença é que essas mortes rotineiras não chamam a atenção, pois são provocadas por vírus conhecidos, enquanto a suína é resultado de um vírus novo. Tão novo que os especialistas chegaram a temer um efeito devastador diante do despreparo do sistema imunológico humano para ele. Os especialistas demoraram a identificar o vírus, mas agora os laboratórios já estão em fase final de testar em voluntários uma vacina recém-criada para proteger o público ainda não atingido. Na prática, a gripe suína vem se revelando menos violenta do que se temia, embora tenha se espalhado com tal rapidez que a Organização Mundial de Saúde a classificou como pandemia. Uma classificação que nada tem a ver com a sua gravidade, e sim com seu alcance em números de pacientes e países atingidos. E porque seu alcance é maior e a contaminação mais rápida em organismos ainda não imunizados, o número de mortes tende a ultrapassar o de outras gripes rotineiras, pois acaba fisgando um número maior de pacientes frágeis. O medo do público, no entanto, prossegue numa demonstração de como as pessoas avaliam de forma diferente os riscos no seu dia a dia. É como um visitante que se apavora diante da possibilidade de sofrer assalto em cidades como Rio ou São Paulo, enquanto os habitantes locais seguem sua vida rotineira, indiferentes às estatísticas que mostram a probabilidade maior de sofrer ataques de bandidos nas ruas. A contaminação no Reino Unido afeta mais as crianças menores de 14 anos, ainda sem imunidade para muitos germes, e por isso a pressão de muitos pais para não reabrir as escolas ao fim das férias. Mas como alertou o diretor da Associação Nacional de Pediatras, é preciso manter este quadro em perspectiva, porque existem 11 milhões de crianças na Inglaterra e só 256 delas foram hospitalizadas com gripe suína. 4 crianças morreram após contrair o vírus, Porém, nos casos de crianças contaminadas, mas previamente saudáveis, nenhuma morreu. O Sem Fronteiras em Londres procurou a Associação Médica Britânica, onde conversamos com Viviane Nathanson.
We're getting to that situation of evaluating risk in a society. You know, we all live with all kinds of risks. So this is just one more case, isn't it?
I think when it comes to risk, I think the key here is recognizing that people are seeing pandemic flu as a new risk and they don't yet know quite how to categorize it. The seasonal flu we're all aware of because we've seen it every year. But I think people are beginning to understand that the risk of this is just much the same as with seasonal flu. Slightly higher risk of getting the flu, maybe a lower risk of being seriously ill with it. We don't really know in detail. But it's just making sure that people understand and put it into that category of the risks that we all live with every day in our lives and that we get on with our lives, just taking those into account.
You yourself handled a previous study talking about the risks of flying. Well, what did you come up with?
We looked at the risks of commercial flying, that is the risk of being a passenger, you know, on a major airline. And it was at the time when people were talking about deep vein thrombosis and a so-called economy class syndrome. And we came to the absolute conclusion that the riskiest thing about flying was the drive to and from the airport by an enormous factor, I mean hundreds of %. But it's not something that people necessarily wanted to hear. I mean, I have a degree of sympathy. It would be nice to say that we could force all the airlines to give you more leg room, but that's not the issue. And it's really just about the fact that when we get in a car, we accept those risks and we don't think about them, but it's because most of us don't fly often that we worry about the risks of flying. So again, it's about normalizing the risk and making people see how it fits with the risks that we all face every day.
Why do you think the UK has so many cases of swine flu, the biggest numbers in Europe?
It's difficult to know. Partly it may be because of the way that many of us live and the fact that we haven't had so far a particularly hot summer and people in crowded environments living close to one another, it's easier to transmit to one another. But in addition to that, we have a very good primary care system, a very good way of recording cases. So it may simply be that we are picking up and recording a much higher percentage of the actual cases than some other countries are.
Is it likely that this new virus will eventually mix with the old traditional seasonal flu and all of a sudden we're just going to have one big mixed up virus?
There are very different views at the moment on whether this virus will mix with the seasonal flu that's around and we'll get a mutated virus, or whether it'll be so dominant, so many people will be affected by it, that the seasonal flu effectively won't happen this year. We don't know, but all we can do is continue to monitor very carefully, and that's why we're continuing to occasionally screen patients. Not everyone, but some people are still being swabbed to make sure that we know if the virus is changing at all, because clearly that could be significant in terms of the way you manage individual cases.
When this new flu first hit, the WHO, the World Health Organization, forecast the possibility of 5 to 6 million people dying from it. That was a bit exaggerated, wasn't it?
When WHO first commented on this, they were looking at the first statistics from Mexico, which seemed to have a higher death rate than we're now seeing in most of the epidemics. It was very early, it was a worst case scenario. And we have to recognize that there are countries where there are far larger numbers as a percentage of the population of people with really serious chronic ill health conditions, in which case they may be more vulnerable. So we still don't know what the totals are going to be, and we don't know whether we'll be able to cut the pandemic short because of the delivery of a vaccine and the targeting of that vaccine. So that's a worst case scenario out of the however many billion, 6, 7 billion people there are in the world.